Picture a typical Saturday morning in a busy living room. A 5-year-old is running around, telling stories, asking a dozen questions a minute, and filling the house with constant chatter. In this warm, familiar environment, they are entirely uninhibited. They feel safe, and their personality is vibrant and highly expressive. Then comes Monday morning. The child packs their backpack, boards the bus, and walks through the front doors of their elementary school. Over the course of the weekend, their core personality remained exactly the same, yet the simple physical act of crossing the school boundary completely shuts down their ability to speak. Inside the classroom, the child sits at their desk in absolute silence, and they will stay exactly like that for the entire 8-hour school day. Looking at this stark shift, a well-meaning teacher or administrator often assumes the child is refusing to engage. They label the behavior as stubbornness, defiance, or simply an extreme case of shyness. This diagram illustrates exactly how common this condition is. 1 in every 140 children experiences this specific disconnect, with the onset typically occurring before their 5th birthday. Because adults misread the silence as a conscious choice, the child is left entirely on their own. They cannot raise their hand to ask for help, whisper a joke to a classmate, or participate in group reading. Educators frequently end up trying to discipline a behavioral problem, completely unaware that they are actually witnessing a neurological freeze. This specific phenomenon has a formal clinical name, selective mutism. It is a severe childhood anxiety disorder. The silence is not an act of opposition, and the child is not consciously deciding to stay quiet. For a licensed clinician to make this diagnosis, the child's inability to speak in specific social situations must be a consistent pattern that lasts for a minimum of 1 month. Furthermore, the silence must actively interfere with the child's ability to learn, complete assignments, or maintain basic friendships. The condition is defined entirely by spatial and environmental context. The anxiety is triggered by a specific place rather than an inherent flaw in the child. To understand why a simple change of scenery acts as a biological off switch for their voice, we have to look closely at what is happening inside the child's mind. This neurological model maps the child's sensory input. When entering school, the environment bypasses logical processing, hitting the threat response center as an immediate danger. This extreme anxiety triggers an involuntary freeze response. Physical pathways controlling vocal cords are effectively blocked. The tragic reality is that the child desperately wants to join the conversation and play with their peers, but their own biology makes doing so physically impossible. Walking through the front doors of the school initiates an automatic physical lockdown, demonstrating clearly that the silence is driven by pure anxiety rather than personal choice. When adults wait for a child to simply outgrow this condition, the long-term stakes compound rapidly. Without targeted treatment, selective mutism can persist for years, stunting the child's academic development and severely damaging their self-esteem. Resolving the freeze response requires early, evidence-based interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy, tailored behavioral techniques, and gradual exposure exercises. We can see here why treating the child in an isolated setting fails. You have 2 disconnected nodes, home and school. The only way to link the safe zone and the trigger zone is by inserting a bridge of coordinated parent-school coaching. Because the root of the anxiety is a disconnect between environments, the treatment must actively pull those exact locations into alignment. For schools in Georgia, MentalSpace School provides the clinical architecture to build that exact bridge. They close the geographical gap by placing dedicated therapist teams directly within the school system and offering same-day teletherapy for students in crisis. Every diagnosis is made by a culturally competent, licensed clinician. The platform is fully compliant with HIPAA, FERPA, and HB 268 standards, and creates a financial safety net by accepting major insurance alongside a $0 Medicaid option. By coordinating directly with the family and the educators, therapists establish a unified strategy that helps the child finally navigate their daily social interactions. With early, coordinated clinical support, educators and parents can systematically dismantle that invisible threshold, returning the classroom to a place where every child actually has a voice.